Hello and welcome tonight. It's freedom at last as abducted students of Government Science Secondary School Kankara, Katsina are released by their abductors. Earlier today, protests trailed Kankara students' abduction with opposition People's Democratic Party and coalition of northern groups demanding improved security in Nigeria. Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 officially declares second wave of coronavirus in Nigeria, advises outright cancellation of all non-essential trips. And European Union leaders begin self-isolation after French President Emmanuel Macron tested positive for COVID-19. Plus, we'll have business, sports, and later on international news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Securities and Exchange Commission begins review of 10-year capital market master plan.
On sports news tonight, Robert Lewandowski caps a history-making season for Bayern Munich by winning the Best FIFA Men's Player Award for 2020.
After spending about 6 nights in the den of their abductors, over 300 students of the Government Science Secondary School in Kankara, Katsina State today regained their freedom. The state government confirmed the release of the boys a while ago, noting that they were currently in Safe, Zamfara State, where they will spend the night and they'll be brought to Katsina tomorrow. The kidnap of the boys sparked local and international outrage, with calls for the government to ensure their rescue. For 2 nights, their parents had been keeping vigil at the school premises since the abduction in anticipation of the return of the children. The government also has been criticized for the handling of security in the country, which is considered to be worsening by the day. And before the boys were released, a video resurfaced on social media showing the gathering of young boys said to be the Kankara school students. Some of the boys in the footage took turns to appeal to the government to help secure their release from their captors.
Vigilantes close any kind of schools, excluding Islamia.
Shine za a gada ma gwamnan Katsina ya gansu suna cikin koshin lafiya, ga suna da ganin su kasan suna cikin koshin lafiya.
All the armies that have come here to help us, please send them back.
Let's stay with the Kankara school abduction now. The President, Muhammadu Buhari, has welcomed the release of the kidnapped students. The President expressed the nation's appreciation for the steps taken by all involved to make their release possible. The President specifically cited what he called the spirit of partnership and the collaborative efforts of the governorship of Katsina, Zamfara, and the military, leading to the release, and commended the nation's intelligence agencies, the military, and the police force for providing the environment for the safe release of the hostages. On the issue of the detainees held elsewhere in the country by either terrorists or bandits, the President gave assurances that his administration is aware of its responsibility to protect the life and property of all Nigerians. Let's just get the latest from what's happening in Kankara from our correspondent, Idris Jibrin. Idris, can you confirm to us, yes, we hear the boys have been released. Is that all of them, as there are reports here and there? But we're reporting that they have all been released. Tell us what it is now, Idris.
Indeed, Chioma, the anxiety is finally over here in Kankara and also across the country. We are made to understand that I can confirm to you that all the over 300 children earlier abducted from Government Science Secondary School Kankara are accounted for. I just spoke with the information officer of Kankara local government, who confirmed to me all the children have been freed on harm, and any moment from now, these children will be taken to Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari, who will decide on whether they should take them back to Kankara or their parents will come and so that they can be reunited with their families. But the confirmed story coming from Katsina State, I can confirm to you that all the children have been freed and they are unharmed and they are safe. and they are now coming to Katsina State, the state's capital.
All right, do you know where they are at the moment? Yes, they're on their way there, but do you know exactly where they are and just how soon they'll be reunited, even though I know you said that decision is yet to be taken, but for parents who are anxiously waiting, particularly those keeping vigil, how long is it going to be before they see them?
Of course, from what we learned, that they are coming from Safe in Zamfara State to Katsina, which of course is not a far distance travel. So we are expecting from now on, from any time now, from now, they should be in Katsina State in the next 2 or 3 hours. They will arrive to Katsina, and I am already speaking with some of the parents that I was able to come in contact with, and they confirmed to me too they had the news of the release of their children, and they are very happy. So as I can tell you that they are en route and they are on their way to Katsina, the state capital. Any moment from now, they will arrive Katsina.
All right, Idris, in terms of the mood where you are now, of the town generally, is there extra security? Do you see that extra effort being made by the security agencies so that we don't see this again? What is it like now where you are?
Well, actually, there is a presence of security everywhere in Katsina State. If you go, you will see that security are moving. They are going around, especially around Kankara axis. I was in Kankara earlier yesterday, and I saw a very heavy security deployment around the area. So the security is actually very tight. Everywhere you go, there are presence of security men in Katsina State. And even today, when I went to Government House, I've seen a number of security men going around and in marketplaces, in public places, and the general mood of the people. When I heard the news that these children have been released, is as if everyone in Katsina State is aware that the children have been released. I've seen people going around. I've seen a group of people discussing that, oh, we heard that these children have been released. These children have been released. Is it true? Is it true? And everybody is asking questions. So people are generally happy that these children have finally been released. And I can tell you that there is a presence of security men everywhere in Katsina State if you go around.
All right, I know you said that they're happy and that's the mood there. Is there any palpable fear among the residents where you are of a reprisal, or is it all joy from what you can see? Finally now.
I have not noticed any sign of fear. What I have seen is joy. Everybody is happy. Like I told you now, as I'm talking to you now, a lot of people have surrounded me. People are moving around. Everyone is happy. Everyone is talking. Everyone is showing his happiness that these children have finally been released. So I have not noticed any sign of fear. All I see is joy among the people, because people have been discussing when these children will be released. Let them be released, and they have finally been released. So everyone is happy. I can see joy in people. I have seen people moving very happily, and I have seen people discussing happily that these children are finally released and they are coming home. So the mood generally is joy actually around Katsina State. Earlier today, you know, there was tension of that protest that was supposed to take place when people were very angry. But now that anger has turned to happiness because people are very happy at the moment in Katsina State.
Thanks a lot for that, Idris Jibrin. Keep your eye on it and give us more when you have it. Thanks a lot for joining us, Idris.
Thank you.
Great. Now, before the boys were released, a video surfaced on social media, as we reported earlier, showing the gathering of young boys said to be the Kankara school students. Some of them in the footage took turns to appeal to the government to help rescue their release from their captors. And also before the release of the students, the coalition of northern groups could not go ahead with their planned protests to press for their rescue today. They had planned to take the protest with the hashtag Bring Back Our Boys to Daura to register their concern with the president, who is currently on a visit to his hometown. However, after gathering at a hotel in Katsina ahead of the protest, they were said to have been met by government officials who prevailed on them not to carry out the action. The group had said they would not fold their arms and watch the North at the mercy of bandits, murderers and kidnappers. Other groups also joined the protest before the release of the students. The national chairman of the main opposition People's Democratic Party, Uche Secondus, led a protest in the nation's capital, Abuja, to demand urgent action to security in the country. With placards bearing different inscriptions, Mr. Secondus led other participants on a walk at the city centre to press home their demands at that time.
National Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Prince Uche Secondus, leads other leaders of the party in a protest, asking the President Buhari-led government to rescue the over 300 school children that were kidnapped in Katsina State last week. The protesters displaying placards with inscriptions about the deteriorating security situation in Nigeria continue to chant solidarity songs as they occupy the roadside of the PDP office in the Maitama area in Abuja. The PDP national chairman says President Buhari must act and rescue the schoolboys.
All we are saying is that Buhari bring back our boys from Katsina. It is important. We are in pain. The parents are in pain. The entire country are in pain. We are in agony. We are in sorrow. It is high time for the government of the day, the APC government, to bring back our boys from Katsina.
Inside the premises, protesters continue with their songs, some calling for the resignation of the president for failing to provide security for citizens. Northern Nigeria has reported more cases of kidnap attacks on school children since 2014. In February of 2014, 59 boys were killed when Boko Haram attacked the federal government college, Buniyadi, in Yobe State. In April of 2014, Boko Haram again kidnapped more than 270 schoolgirls from a government boarding school in Chibok in northeastern Borno State. And on February the 19th, 2018, 110 schoolgirls were kidnapped by Boko Haram from the Government Girls Science and Technical College, Dapchi, Yobe State. The abduction of the Kankara schoolboys last week Friday sparked fresh anger across the country, with many renewing their call on the government to prioritize security and give it the attention it deserves.
Also today, the People's Democratic Party caucus in the House of Representatives called for the impeachment of President Muhammadu Buhari over the abduction of the Kankara schoolboys. Part of the demands from the caucus, led by opposition leader Kingsley Chinda, is to awaken the consciousness of lawmakers to the realities of the moment and rescue Nigeria from what he calls the road to perdition. He asked his colleagues to evoke the powers under Section 143 of the Constitution and commence impeachment proceedings against President Muhammadu Buhari for gross incompetence and breach of Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution. In part two, after the break, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 officially declares second wave of coronavirus in Nigeria, advises outright cancellation of all non-essential trips. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. It's freedom at last as abducted students of Government Science Secondary School Kankara are released by their abductors. Earlier today, protests trailed Kankara students' abduction, with opposition People's Democratic Party and coalition of northern groups demanding improved security in Nigeria. Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 officially declares second wave of coronavirus in Nigeria, advises outright cancellation of all non-essential trips, and European Union leaders begin self-isolation after French President Emmanuel Macron tested positive for COVID-19. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has indicated that it will begin to review further reopening of the nation's economy as it declares officially a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. The PTF chairman, currently on self-isolation and represented by the Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, made the emphasis that owing to the spike, all non-essential trips be cancelled outrightly. Our correspondent Gloria Umezuke reports.
The announcement by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 that vaccines would be made available by first quarter of 2021 also comes with the terrible news that officially Nigeria begins a second phase of the pandemic. The PTF chairman, currently on self-isolation, is represented by the Minister of Aviation.
In Nigeria, the indication is that we have entered a second wave of infections, and we stand the risk of not just losing the gains from the hard work of the last 9 months, but also not losing the precious lives of our dear citizens. Current realities, however, point to the fact that the course of further opening up of the economy may have to be reviewed.
The aviation minister further reveals palliatives for business owners at the airports.
We took a decision to waive certain fees being charged by FAN for the period of 6 months from April to September 2020 on the following revenue lines: ground rent, rent, service recovery charge, and concession fee for concessionaires who pay yearly fixed rate in advance. And of course, these are only for FAN-controlled airports.
Lagos, Kaduna and the FCT are currently recording the highest numbers of cases, hence the charge that public and private leaders enforce strict adherence to the COVID-19 protocols.
Let the leaders of restaurants, the owners, the directors in offices and ministries enforce that if people are not wearing masks, they should not enter that premises.
We will communicate the measures that will be required over the coming days once we've had additional discussions with the state governors as well as with our principal.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 is expected to submit its report on Tuesday, the 22nd of December, 2020. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State has tested positive for coronavirus after a test was conducted on the governor and members of his family. A statement from the Director of Press and Public Affairs to the governor said the governor has gone into isolation and that members of his family all tested negative. He adds that the governor is asymptomatic and will henceforth work from home during the period of treatment, while his close aides are still expecting the result of their own tests. From all-time low numbers of cases in August, Nigeria recorded the highest ever figure for new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in a 24-hour period on December the 12th. 796 new cases were recorded, confirming the federal government's fears that the worst is not over. Several states are deliberating on how to contain the spread. Our correspondent Mary Alale Yusuf visits some isolation centers.
This is a stakeholders meeting in Kaduna, the Kaduna state capital, to fashion out a plan to control the spread of COVID-19. For now, The virus has not spread to some local government areas, and the state authorities want to keep it that way.
How do we take forward the forward campaign that we have been talking about? Because we need it now more than ever before. If we don't do that, we will see a surge in cases. So it's not going to now be restricted to all the local governments that have been mentioned, that will now have it everywhere.
Although Bayelsa State is recording roughly the same weekly tally of new cases, the Chief Medical Director of Niger Delta Teaching Hospital in the state is asking for heightened caution among residents and health workers.
What we are doing now, we are further reactivating and strengthening our preparedness and level of response.
There are 5 patients in the state's major isolation center, which has remained functional. Lagos has the highest number of confirmed cumulative cases and is still responsible for a large chunk of new cases. For some time, ever since confirmed cases of COVID-19 started rising again, the federal government has been warning of an imminent second wave. In Lagos State, all isolation centers except the Infectious Diseases Hospital, Yaba, were decommissioned. Following the warning to be ready for a second wave, we visited several centers: the Infectious Diseases Hospital, Landmark Isolation Center, and Onikon Stadium. None of them let us in or allowed us to get footage of the facilities. We were, however, informed that no decommissioned isolation center has been reopened. Lagos now has a cumulative count of over 25,000 cases. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
The meeting between the federal government and members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities again failed to reach a consensus towards the suspension of the 8-month-old industrial action. At the opening of the reconvened meeting in Abuja, the Minister of Labour and Employment says he expects to get feedback from ASU after the government made new offers in their last meeting. Meanwhile, the ASU president notes that his union also hopes to get additional offers from the government, which he will take back to his members. The directive from the president that 4 land borders in the country be immediately reopened so far has been accepted as a welcome development to improve the country's economy, but there are concerns that implementation may be slow. Our correspondent visits some of the 4 borders, and let's see what they have to say.
Relief and jubilation by residents of Seme border after news of reopening of the border filtered in. Along the Seme border international route, checkpoints are mounted by all security forces at 1 meter distance, engaging motorists. At the border, it's status quo, with restriction on entry of goods and persons still in place. Although government authorities at the border declined speaking to us on camera, commercial activities are gradually picking up as residents say the decision is long overdue.
People in Badagry, people in Seme, they will come back to life. If you were here before the opening of border yesterday, you understand what I'm saying. A whole place is deserted, but you can see with your eyes, you see a lot of people.
The story is similar in Jigawa State, where residents of Maikatari, a border town with Niger Republic, also expressed delight over the news of the reopening.
The economy of these people living here is largely dependent on the border, and we have suffered a lot during the border closure. We were denied buying fuel here. We have to travel out to so many kilometers before we get fuel. So many things that we used to have easy access to, we are now denied. So with this opening, we think things will open up and look for better.
In Sokoto State, officials at the Ilela border are still awaiting authorization to open it as residents lament the impact of the closure on their businesses.
If indeed it is true that the borders are going to be opened, it is good, as prices of items will come down.
Operators at the Seme end count the losses of the 16-month closure.
So many of our members have died. So are they coming back? And what causes their death? Because then when you have 2 naira, 3 naira, and you are sick, you'll be able to get drug and take, especially those with high blood pressures. You get drug and take. Now, they fall sick, no work, no nothing.
That they close this border, in fact, the thing was to even my house where my house where I put, I don't sell land because of what I want to eat and my family school fees, all these things. My parents, they need money, everything I sell them. So some of them I don't sell their property because of this border closure.
With the directive from the federal government, residents of the border communities are anticipating that their businesses will start thriving again, with a promise to avoid illegal activities.
When the news at 10 returns, Securities and Exchange Commission begins review of 10-year capital market master plan. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Choice International Group, a leading conglomerate of business concerns in Nigeria, has donated items worth millions of naira to the Ajeromi Ifelodun local government. The donation comes in the wake of destruction and looting by hoodlums in the aftermath of the End-SARS protests. It's expected to be used to rebuild the local council structure.
It may be tucked into one of the outskirts of Lagos, but it was picked out and heavily hit by the rampaging arsonists in the wake of the hijacked End-SARS protests. It's been weeks, and gradually the staff and management of this local government, Ajeromi Ifelodun, are picking up what's left and are back to work. On this occasion, some respite has come for the local government council by way of encouragement and support through the difficult time, as Choice International Group, under the leadership of an accomplished industrialist and entrepreneur, Chief Diana Chen, is donating these items to enable them get back up again.
I present this donation on behalf of Chief Diana Chen, the founder of Chief Diana Chen Foundation, and the chairman of Choice International Group.
The reasons are not outrageous. Love and concern is the fulcrum of their actions, the company representative says.
When this issue happened and we saw the videos online about the incident in the local government, it's really a touching moment for us. We believe that when there's trying time, with unity, with hard work, and with consistency, we can change our narrative. We are bringing our product. The reason for that is because you can see that a lot of air condition are being burnt already here, and that is the Degree Air Condition. Degree Air Condition is one of the #1 products in the world. So we believe that if we give our product to the local government, it will reduce the costs burden on them to rebuild this place.
The council boss couldn't be more grateful for the considerations, just as he appeals for more.
We thank God for what is happening today. Chief Diana of the CIG Motors graciously blessed the council with materials worth 5 million naira. We thank her for her generosity, and we are also appealing to some spirited individuals out there to come to our aid, because apart from these donations that I've just mentioned, nothing else has come from both the federal government and the state government.
For the management of Choice International, their presence in Nigeria's business climate isn't just about grabbing all that there is, but a model of partnership that helps build economic strength for a common good of all, as has been demonstrated on this occasion.
Some persons living with disabilities from the Niger Delta region have stormed the National Assembly complex in Abuja to protest what they termed neglect by the federal lawmakers representing them. The aggrieved protesters, under the banner of Great Minds Foundation of People Living with Deformities in the Niger Delta, forced themselves inside the Assembly complex despite resistance by security operatives. The spokesperson of the group, Amos Etim, said they arrived at the National Assembly from various states of the Niger Delta to demand their rights from their representatives. The Deputy Whip of the Senate, Senator Aliyu Sabi, who led other lawmakers to meet with the protesters, appealed for calm, promising that their grievances will be addressed. Let's take a look at some business news now. And here's Melinda Akinlami.
Thanks, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has commenced a joint review of Nigeria's 10-year capital market master plan to support the country's economic resilience against lower crude oil prices and the COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement released today, the SEC says the master plan, which is being made in partnership with the UK Development Agency, FSD Africa, will strengthen the market's contribution to Nigeria's economy and development when implemented. The SEC further mentions that CMMP will include tools to measure progress, new challenges, opportunities, risk related to the current economic environment. And crude oil prices hit a 9-month high today as traders are optimistic about progress towards a U.S. fiscal stimulus deal and strong Asian demand. Brent crude futures were up 0.96% at $51.56 per barrel, while U.S. WTI crude futures rose by 1.25% to $48.43 a barrel. Both benchmarks are at their highest since early March. This is good news for Nigeria as crude oil accounts for half of the government's income and foreign exchange earnings, while the country's proposed budget for 2021 is benchmarked at $40 per barrel. Nigeria's stock market has climbed back to a new high after extending its winning streak for a 4th consecutive session. Layo Adegoke has a summary of today's trading.
Thank you for joining us for the Stock Market Report. The dynamic nature of the stock market reflected very much at the close of today's trading session as the NSE's main index jumped by a wide margin into the 36,000 higher level. That resounding bellow from the bull tells you that it defied expectations of traders and analysts by a mildly positive performance. But instead, the market's main indicators surged by 2.10% today, thanks to more intense bargain hunting by investors. Now, you may wonder which stocks drove this single-day massive rally: Airtel Africa and Dangote Cement. These two market heavyweights contributed largely to more than 636 billion naira gain in total market value. This comes as 28 other gainers from the 5 key sectors of the market outnumbered the losses from 17 laggards. As I said yesterday, the good times are here for investors in this market, and analysts say if this tempo is sustained, the local equities market could be back on its way to reclaiming its recently lost status as the world's best performing stock market. And that's it on the Stock Market Report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
That's Business News. Back to you, Joma.
Thanks, Melinda. The Ogun State government has held the annual carol and service of 9 lessons to appreciate God for his protection and mercy despite many challenges in the year. The event, held at the state capital, was attended by the state governor and his wife, the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and members of the State Executive Council.
The year may have been a challenging one, considering some of the events which brought about a new world order of things. The COVID-19 pandemic, the EndSARS protests, and the attendant destructions that followed. Despite the challenges, the 2020 edition of the Ogun State Christmas Carol of 9 Lessons draws government officials, traditional rulers, religious leaders, and gospel artists to the June 12 Cultural Center to witness the occasion. Hymns and Bible readings and choruses are highlights of the events.
In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. Father, continue to empower Him.
The event was rounded off by prayers offered by former President Olusegun Obasanjo for the governor, the state, and Nigeria.
Still ahead on the news at 10, European Union leaders begin self-isolation after French President Emmanuel Macron tested positive for COVID-19. And more from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. Welcome back. France's President Emmanuel Macron has become the latest world leader to test positive for coronavirus, prompting a number of European leaders to self-isolate as a precaution. Though he had attended a two-day European Council Heads of State summit last week, he's considered to have become potentially contagious as of Monday evening. Among leaders self-isolating are European Council Chief Charles Michel, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, Portuguese Prime Minister Javier Bettel, and the First Lady Brigitte Macron, who has not had any symptoms. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. French President Emmanuel Macron has tested positive for COVID-19, forcing several European leaders to self-isolate after coming into contact with him. The 42-year-old president was tested after developing symptoms and will now self-isolate for 7 days. His office said he is still in charge of running the country and will work remotely. President of the European Council, Charles Michel, and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez are among the leaders having to self-isolate. France this week ended a 6-week national lockdown, replacing the measure with a curfew to help deal with soaring cases. A powerful snowstorm is sweeping through the northeastern US with warnings in place for 14 states, affecting more than 60 million people. Some parts of Pennsylvania and New York are predicted to see as much as 60 centimetres of snow. The National Weather Service has warned of dangerous, if not impossible, travel conditions and isolated power surges in the worst affected areas. Officials say they do not expect the storm to disrupt COVID-19 vaccine distribution, which began in the US on Monday.
2, 3.
Sweden's King Carl XVI Gustaf has described 2020 as a terrible year and said the national coronavirus strategy had failed.
Stort antal som har avlidit helt enkelt.
Sweden has been widely criticised for its unorthodox approach to handling the pandemic, relying more on guidelines and no mandatory face mask wearing. Instead of relying on legal sanctions, Sweden appeals to citizens' sense of responsibility and civic duty. The country has never imposed a nationwide lockdown, and most schools, bars and restaurants have remained open. More than 7,800 people have died from the virus. A Kenyan man who attended flight school in the Philippines has been accused of plotting to hijack a plane and fly it into a building in the US. Cholo Abdi Abdullah was arrested on weapons charges in the Philippines last year. Prosecutors have not named which city he allegedly planned to target. According to the FBI, Mr. Abdullah was transferred to the US from the Philippines to face a long list of terrorism offences, including aircraft piracy and conspiring to murder US citizens. Chang'e E5 space mission has returned to Earth with the cargo of rock and soil it picked up from the moon. A capsule carrying the materials landed in Inner Mongolia at 1:59 a.m. local time. It's more than 40 years since the American Apollo and Soviet lunar missions brought their samples home. The new specimens should provide fresh insight on the geology and early history of Earth's satellite. For China, the successful completion of the mission will also be seen as another demonstration. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has suggested the United States will remain hostile towards Iran even after President-elect Joe Biden takes office. In the first speech in several weeks, Mr. Khamenei said Washington could not be trusted, a remark indicating a wary attitude towards President Donald Trump's successor. In a meeting to mark the first anniversary of the killing of the military commander General Qasem Soleimani in a US attack in Iraq, the Ayatollah said American antagonism would not disappear with the end of the Trump administration. And finally, an artefact from ancient Egypt missing for decades has been found in a cigar box at the Scottish University of Aberdeen by a staff member. The find, fragments from 5,000-year-old cedar wood, are thought to have been used in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Curatorial assistant Abir El Adani said she was delighted to have found the missing artefact. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Time now for the sports news. The Nigeria Olympic Committee has approved 3 new sports federations to operate under its leadership. They are the Nigeria Tekball Federation, the Bobsled and Skeleton Federation of Nigeria, and the Nigeria Curling Federation. At its annual general virtual meeting on Thursday, the Nigeria Olympic Committee says the new bodies will be allowed to vote in its elections and also participate in the Global Olympic Organization. Robert Lewandowski has capped a history-making season for FC Bayern Munich by winning the Best FIFA Men's Player Award for the year 2020. The Poland international beats Barcelona and Argentina skipper Lionel Messi and Portugal captain and Juventus forward Cristiano Ronaldo to claim the award for the first time. Meanwhile, England defender Lucy Bronze has been named the Best Women's Player of the Year. Now, the 29-year-old Manchester City defender, who won the Champions League with Olympique Lyon in August, carried off the award ahead of her former Olympique Lyon teammate Wendy Renard and Pernille Harder, who moved from Wolfsburg to Chelsea in early September. And Napoli's record goal scorer Dries Mertens has been ruled out for at least 3 weeks with a sprained left ankle. The 33-year-old Belgian international limped off in the first half of Napoli's 1-0 defeat at Internazionale or Inter Milan on Wednesday. The Serie A club confirmed that Mertens has already begun rehabilitation, which will continue in Belgium during the Christmas period. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. That's a wrap on Sports News. Back to you, John.
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The abducted students of Government San Secondary School, Kankara, Katsina, today regained their freedom from their abductors after 6 days. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari welcomed the release of the boys and expressed the nation's appreciation for the steps taken by all to rescue them. And some European leaders today began self-isolation after French President Emmanuel Macron tested positive for COVID-19. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Bunyato. Good night.